Hello everybody, this is Pred doing another video. I know that it's been a while since the last one, but there's some reasoning for that. One is that I'm a little bit lazy and I just hadn't done one in a while. The other one was that I'd actually stopped playing League for a little bit because, as like many of you, I grew really frustrated with the solo queue and just the performance of either myself or my team, as it were. And then the last reason it's actually kind of good is that I'm doing this on a different computer, so I had to get everything set back up. But that's good because that means that I can actually do some higher quality videos. If you'll notice, the last couple of my videos, the settings weren't set to their highest, the resolution wasn't the best. And this one's going to be quite a bit better as far as that goes. And so as to what this video is, it's going to be a lot like the fashion of the Mordekaiser video that I did because people seem to like that. I got a couple of friend requests online and a couple of comments and stuff like that. So we're going to follow that same trend. And another topic I wanted to talk about was tanking and my thoughts on it and how I go about tanking personally. And this actually started because I was playing a game, now it's probably been about 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, and there was a Malphite who was terrible. He was not. He was our tank. Like, it wasn't like he ever stated that he wasn't tanking. He was supposed to be our tank, but he kept saving his slam and his ult to get last kills or last hits to get kills. He wasn't actually trying to save the team, and we lost because of it. And then of course he blamed the team and said that we needed to play better like he was because look at how many kills he had gotten. And so I kind of wanted to go over the ideas of tanking and just explain to people at least what my views on tanking are. Again, you might not agree with some of the stuff I say, but hopefully you can at least see where I'm coming from. So the first thing that I kind of want to go over is this idea of what a tank is. Now, in my opinion, not every team needs a tank. And also, because of this, not everyone that people claim as a tank is one. In my opinion, a tank is somebody who is capable of disrupting the other team in some form or fashion, and they are capable of saving a teammate. What a lot of people consider a tank is someone who is a soak or an initiator. And in this respect, a lot of people can be built to what most people would consider tanks. But the champions I'm going to use as an example are people like Mordekaiser and I cannot think of his name now. So Mordekaiser and Garen. Two of my biggest pet peeves as far as this game is concerned is people who say that Mordekaiser and Garen are tanks. They are not. In my opinion, they are soaks, and they can initiate because the general build gives them a decent amount of health. But the problem is that a Garen or a Mordekaiser that builds purely as a tank, you can ignore completely. And if I get a game recorded where I can show this to people, I will definitely put it up there. I had one a while ago, but I wasn't recording at the time because I was still using the other computer. But the point being that if I see a Garen go full tank, I love it because that basically means that he's not going to do much damage because he's built for survivability, and he's not going to be able to force me to fight him. He's not going to be able to save teammates because he has no damage. I can ignore him. I can ignore the fact that he's even on the battlefield. Now take for instance someone like Shen. Now keep in mind that I don't think a tank has to have a taunt, and I'm using Shen as an example because he's one of my favorite tanks. But Shen, he has a taunt, so I can force you to fight me whether you want to or not. That's good for initiating, and that's also good for saving teammates, because if a teammate comes up and you're trying to attack them, and we're going to see a few times later in this game, I taunt, and that forces you to attack me, and that makes us get the kill, or that makes it to where my teammate can get away. What else does Shen have? He has a heal. Now, it's not a super heal. It's not like a Soraka or Taric heal or something. But the fact is that I can throw the Vorpal Blade, and I can lane a little bit longer because of the healing effect. And the other thing that he's got a global shield. Now, this is where he really makes his money as a tank, is that I can, at any given time, assuming the cooldown's up, I can add an effective 600 health to any teammate. And this is important because that means that if you get yourself into a bad situation, I can get you out of it. And that's the job of a tank. Someone like Mordekaiser technically has a shield, but his shield's pretty much pathetic. And if that is... it's unlikely that his shield's ever going to save you. Now I'm going to stop with the rant on tanks for a second, because we're actually going to see here before too long, I'm going to die. And this... so I'm trying to mix in this idea of tanking with a review of the game, and I'll probably miss some of the kills and some of the stuff like that. But I would like to point out at least my deaths to let you know what the mistake was, what I should have done better. And now what you can see is Vladimir is pushing pretty hard. The problem with Vladimir is he's actually got his own escape, and it's a very effective escape, where he turns into the blood pool, and then he is no longer targetable. So what this means is that, one, while he's in the pool, he's actually dealing damage to you. Two, the tower is not going to switch to him. And three, it allows him to get out of like bad situations. So here's basically what happens. He ults, he pulls, which I think he pulled a little early. He should have waited. But then his transfusions what actually got what killed me. And you can see he walks out of there and everything's good to go. But either way. So the next point being, we'll go on to some of the stats of what a tank should get. Now, clearly, as people think with tanks and initiators, actually, you know what, we'll go back to that real quick. So, an initiator. Who else can initiate that is not a tank? Garen and Mordekaiser are both beefy. Even when they're built for damage, you're generally going to get some items that give them a decent amount of health, which means that they're probably going to be able to initiate. Someone else that's actually capable of initiating fairly well, and I've seen this done pretty effectively, is Ashe. No one would ever claim Ashe is a tank. I don't know of any of you out there that would say, yes, Ashe is a tank. She's not. But she can initiate because her ult. Her ult's got a huge stun on it, and with the slow, she's very effective at initiating fights. She can't soak, but she can initiate fights, and she's not a tank. So that's kind of where I draw the line. Someone else who I think makes an okay tank, someone like Blitzcrank. They have a silence, they have a pop-up, and they have a grab. They are very effective at initiating, and they can also be built tanky to where they're hard to kill. So basically, building them as a tank doesn't necessarily gimp them so much. Alright, enough with that rant for now. What we're going to move on to, though, is this idea of stats. So, what are the primary stats of a tank? Generally speaking, it's health. Health is the #1 stat because health translates directly into damage, i.e., 1 point of health blocks 1 point of damage, and this is good. Now, the other two stats that I think are just as important, if not more so in many cases, are armor and magic resist. If you're playing a team that is full physical damage, you really should prioritize armor even above health. And my reasoning for this is that armor gives you effective health. So if you have 50% armor or you reduce 50% of physical damage, and they're all physical damage, you have effectively increased your health by 50%. That's the same way with magic resist. Now, it kind of gets crazy because most of the time you're not going to be facing a team that is full of one or the other. You're going to be facing a mixture of them. And also, they have items that reduce these stats. So, the Void Staff reducing magic resist, which means the more magic resist you stack, the more effective that item becomes. And I can't remember what the one for armor is. Oh, Last Whisper. Same deal with Last Whisper. The more armor you stack, the more effective Last Whisper becomes. And that's why most tanks generally favor health with a decent amount of armor and magic resist. But that's why you don't ever see anyone pure, like, getting 6 Thorn Mail. Even though that would give you a lot of armor, one Last Whisper makes that almost useless, and you now have, no health. So here, we're actually getting ready to see, I'm going to ult someone who, right here, I ult Misfortune, and the reason for it is to make sure that she doesn't die. And you can see I exhausted Warwick, and then we get some kills. So this point being that actually what happened is both of these guys disconnected, so I probably didn't even need to ult Misfortune, but I didn't want to take that chance. And then the other thing that you're going to notice that I did was I actually exhausted Warwick. Now again, because of the situation where it was actually Warwick against 4 of us, I probably didn't need to do that. But one of the things, when you're a tank, you pretty much have to come to terms with the fact that you're playing for your team. You're not playing for yourself. Now, exhaust doesn't necessarily help Shen that much because not only do I have an escape, I'm also the tank, which means I'm hard to kill anyway. But exhaust does help controlling the enemy team's carries, which is why a lot of times, if there is no other exhaust on the team, I will run exhaust. Same with clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is good because it's a free ward every so often. You can basically peer anywhere you would like, and that helps to make sure that they can't get position on you, which again, if you're the tank, you're initiating, your whole idea is to get the best position for your team while trying to save your teammates, and clairvoyance will help you do that. So the reason I ended up picking up exhaust this time was because nobody else on the team has exhaust, and I feel that that was more important because I can get the vision with wards and things like that. So the next thing that was kind of in that same vein is my skilling order in this case. I actually decided to max out my taunt and my shield first because the way Vladimir has been working is with transfusion later in the game, and it goes on a pretty short cooldown. Early in the game it's terrible, but late in the game it's a pretty short cooldown and does a decent amount of damage. The shield helps absorb that damage. With me taunting, it helps absorb that damage and all that good stuff. And then also, the more points you get in, at least in Shen's case, is the more little less energy that it costs. So the overall idea with this, of course, being that when you are a tank, you really have to think about what works best for the team and kind of skip on stuff that maybe would help you specifically, but doesn't help the team. And that actually extends a little bit into the, well, not a little bit, extends fully into the items as well, as it turns out, because the what you're going to see is I end up getting the Aegis of Legion, I believe it's called. And the reason I do this is because of the way our team is working. I understand that most of our physical, or most of our damage dealing people are not going to favor too much survivability. And now early in the game, it turns out that the Aegis is very good for survivability. It gives armor, it gives magic resist, and it also gives your physical damage a little bit more damage, which is good. Now later on in the game, I would hope that most people will pick up a Banshee's Veil or Rylai's Scepter or Frozen Mallet or something to add a little bit of survivability. But early game, something like the Aegis can make quite a difference. And it's still a good tanking item for you because it gives you health and it gives you your own armor and magic resist. The other thing that it actually does pretty well is that it's cheap. So you can get it fairly early. So specifically that item is one I don't recommend late game necessarily, but if you can get it kind of early, then it helps out a lot, as you'll see, reducing the incoming damage. And there's some other items that do that too, so things like Randu and Zoman and stuff. And basically, like I said, the whole point being that you don't want to... Early in the game, your job as a tank is to make sure your team lives with any means necessary, and sometimes that means prioritizing items to help them over ones that help you. And now what you just saw where I went up in the bushes and then I had come back, it was because Vladimir had killed me already, and I was aware that he was more than capable of killing me, but I still wanted to get experience. So rather than push out, I went ahead and hid in the bushes, and it turns out it works for Shen because I have an exhaust, or not an exhaust, but I have an escape with my dash move. And I actually think it doesn't matter. In fact, I'm pretty sure I end up dying here shortly anyway because he tower dives me. Because Vladimir is very good at tower diving because, as we'd spoken earlier, the blood... Yeah, I believe I'm going down again. Oh no, I tried to ult. Okay, so I tried to ult out to save myself, and it turns out the shield doesn't save enough, and he ends up getting the kill. Maybe if I would have done it earlier, I probably would have survived. But either way, the tower's going down, and I can't really stop that at the moment. But you can see, like I said, I got the Merc Treads, and now I'm working on my Aegis. The Merc Treads, the reason being that the magic resist is good, and I don't think anyone will argue that not being snared when you're the tank is an extremely good thing. And they had a decent amount of snares on their team, and so I basically just want to make sure that I am disabled as little as possible because I need to be able to help my team as much as I possibly can. And then another thing that I would actually kind of like to go over, and this was more specific to Shen, was that, or anyone with a global, in fact, Shen, Karthus, doesn't matter. I don't do it so good early game, but late game you'll actually notice I start jumping around the map quite a bit. And I don't know if anyone knows this, so I'm not going to take for granted that you do know this, but if you use your function keys, your F1 through F5, you can actually jump to a specific champion, and it's in order of top to bottom on the left of the screen. So in this case, F1 is me, F2 is Scion, F3 is Misfortune, so on and so forth. So using that whenever your global's up allows you to quickly jump and see whether or not someone needs your ult. So as Shen, do they need me to save them? Or as Karthus, do they need me to kill somebody that might be otherwise get away? And you'll start to notice that that's what'll kind of separate. You'll always play against those Shens or the Karthuses, rather, that they always seem to know. And it's frustrating because it's like, man, it's because of them that, you know, I didn't get the kill or because I died or whatever like that. And that's pretty much how you do that. Is you just hit F1 or hit F2, F3, whatever you need to hit, and then whenever you got to go back to yourself, hit F1. Also, if you didn't know, if you hit A and then click on a spot, your guy will attack to that location. So a lot of times, if there's a creep wave, I will just hit A, attack